2007 Audi A4 Quattro. Issue with this one is customer says the AC is not working. Wait till he's done there. So anyways, they put in a new compressor, the customer did. A shop put Freon in it, but it's still not working. So this bumper on this one came off very easily because I don't think it was put on correctly. Literally 3 screws were holding this thing on. But anyways, if you look into the air conditioning module here, I got a split screen going on. You go to codes. We got a high pressure sensor open circuit, short circuit to battery positive. It says it's either high or open circuit or battery positive. And we got an instrument cluster issue. Well, the high pressure sensor is right here. So we plug this back in. Like I said, the high pressure sensor there, we plug it back in. And you go back to live data here. We're going to pull up read by channel, going to be channel 1 for our sensor data. So your G65 high pressure signal says 100%. It's duty cycle. Refrigerant pressure says 478, and it never changes. Our AC valve, or N280, is a valve on our compressor. So this clutch is always turning, but it's got a regulator valve on the back or bottom of the compressor, on the bottom of this one. And that's 0 amps, 0% duty cycle. So, if you look at how this thing works, show you here in the schematics. So the high pressure sensor connector, 3 pins right there, power, ground, and a signal. So one is your ground. Sorry, my connector here, or my page printed off bad, but pin 1 is your ground, which is this one. That's your ground, going to your ground. Pin 3 is your positive, battery positive. Battery positive, 12 volts. Pin 3 plus connector to 15 amp and IPC harness. That's where power comes from. And then the pin 2 is your signal output, square wave signal to the climatic control unit J255, which is this. The J255 climatic control unit is that module right there in the bottom. So it's not blowing cold, pressure's in the lines, nothing's changing. There's wild. He's about as smart as a monkey. I'm kidding, he's a good dude. So now, so the high pressure, with the harness connected, the compressor will not switch. With the high pressure sensor A, so the high pressure sensor A, which is the actual sensor right there, is an electronic control module. It creates a square wave signal. The duty cycle ratio changes with the pressure and the refrigerant high pressure sensor pressure signal. Well, if you look over here, so that is our pressure transducer, and it gives you a graph here what it's supposed to do. So the climatic control unit head switch control head switches the compressor on at duty cycle greater than 12%, approximately to 1.8 bar, and less than 87.5%, approximately 32 bar. If no compressor shutoff condition is present by activities, compressor regulator valve 280, blah, blah, blah. Talk about all this stuff. So you can go over all this stuff, but the duty cycle and pressure calculated by the climatic control unit J255 is in group 1, which is what we're looking at, group 1 right there. Anyways, talks about all this other stuff, how it pressure sensor works with other stuff on the computer and all that. But Well, right now when that's unplugged or plugged in, none of this shit changes. None of the pressures change. So I'm going to hook up my function generator again and send a signal in, and it still doesn't change, which I'll show you here. So our function generator to send to 12 volts. We'll do like, I don't know, 60% duty cycle, square wave. All right, so I got our function generator, their VCMI, sending 12 volts out at 60% duty cycle to the pin 2, which is the middle wire there. I'll turn it on, and you would think this stuff would change, and it never does. Even when I start the car, it doesn't change, which it should change. I'm sending a signal right to this module down there. And I got no change on any of this stuff. And I can change, I don't know, let's go to like 40%. Nothing. I get these two ain't gonna do nothing yet. Well, they should actually, because this will be an input into the computer, should process it, open this regulator valve. I have no change. I unplug it and I'll have the same results. I'll show you that next. So I unplugged it, still giving a signal in. So I went to the front there with the breakout lead pin 2, still giving a signal in. And look, nothing changes at all. I can change the peak to peak voltage to 5 volts. None of this stuff changes at all. So we got to address that. All right, so nothing changed there. Another thing I need to look at is the power wire. I'm supposed to have power at pin 3. So let's escape out of this. Let's go to our multimeter. I checked this earlier and I do not have power. See DC voltage. Just do a big digital mode. Let's hook up that next. All right, so we're on pin 3. Power coming in. Pin 3. Power. Our other leads grounded to our battery, just like when we use the function generator. And we got nothing. No voltage. We should have battery voltage. That's key on engine off. Let's start it just to make sure. Key on engine running. Ground. Voltage should be coming through there. We got nothing. We got no voltage. So we're not getting the circuit powered up. If the circuit's not getting powered up, how's the transducer going to read? So I put the function generator back in to pin 2. Ground. Still nothing. Nothing changes on here at all. So earlier, before I started filming this, I took my power probe and I gave it power to pin 3 here, which is the power wire. And I still got nothing on here. But what's really weird too is when I send a signal into the module, I'm not getting nothing back on the module feedback. So I got a couple issues. Number one, we got to figure out why we're not getting power to this connector. Number two, do we got a bad pressure sensor? I was told there's freon in this. We need to look at that as well. And number three, is a signal wire going back to that ACJ255 controlling it, whatever the heck Audi calls it. Is that good or bad? We got to see that and look at that. So we need to do some more tests and go from there. Just to show you, I got the power probe up to pin 3. We got everything plugged back in. Using the power probe, I'm going to give it 12 volts, battery voltage. And look, nothing changes. It's off there, then it's on for voltage. Nothing changes at all. We're not getting a signal in to that module, AC module. All right, so what I'm going to do next, probably in a different part of this video, or this will probably just be part 1 because I got to get home soon, is we have no pressure changes. So we need, again, to figure out why we have no power coming from that to that sensor. why when we send a signal and it's not reading. We could go right to this regulating valve, the N280, which is the regulating valve. It looks like the same J255 unit controls it. It goes to ground, so must give it voltage. So I imagine the pressure sensor goes in from this other schematic. Right here, it reads pressure, and then it regulates that pressure with this regulating valve for Freon to go through. We could give this power on and off real quick. See, I don't think the pressures are going to change because, well, they are mechanically, but maybe not on the pressure transducer. So we could do that as well. But I probably want to get back to the back of the climatic control unit inside the car and send a signal in to that right there with the function generator, see if it's reading, and also maybe go right to the climatic control unit and send a, a square wave into that as well. Turn it on and off basically with power probe and see if stuff changes. So we'll probably do that later. That'll be in part 2, but that's it for now for this part 1 for this 2007 Audi A4 Quattro air conditioning issues.